So would you go online and look up a really good website to tell you more about beauty products, or would you look up a glossy magazine, or maybe even the Sunday papers, or what would you recommend?
I'm quite old school, so I do like a magazine. I think that you get a totally different thing from it than just going online. And one of my favourite writers is actually from the Sunday Times Style, India Knight.
Oh yes.
And so she just does a column just on one product every week, and I think that is a great way to get into beauty, especially if you're not. Well, it doesn't matter if you're a real beauty addict like me. I still enjoy reading it, but if you have no idea about beauty, I think that's a really good place to start. But
I like the one product.
As well. Yeah.
I like the one product because I'm not big into the beauty world so much. So when they do these top 20 and 30 and you're trying to read them all and you're trying to remember this one and that one, it's just too many for me.
Yeah.
But I agree, that India column is great because all she does is say, right, I'm just going to talk about mascara.
Yes.
And this is the one.
And it's not confusing because otherwise they're like, you have to start with this one and that one.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Kim Winser. I'm the founder and CEO of Winser London Limited. We have a fabulous website doing women's fashion. A little bit about me. I founded the business 5 years ago. This is our 5th birthday. I'm also a non-executive director of a hotel group, the Peninsula Hotels, and lucky enough to be trustee of the Natural History Museum. So quite a diverse selection of things. But my passion in life is my own business, Winser London. And I'm sitting here today with Samantha.
Hi everyone. So I'm Samantha Freedman, and I have been a journalist for about 10 years now, specialising in beauty, and I have just started my own brand, Just Add Beauty, which pairs together fashion and beauty brands and creates a bespoke edit of beauty on each fashion brand that joins up with me's website. And we are very excited to be working with Winser and putting together an amazing collection of beauty products that are perfect for you guys, the Winser audience. So Kim, you are an amazing entrepreneur, and obviously I'm just starting out. How did you start your career, and what gave you the kickstart to start your own business?
Well, the good thing is it just proves that you can be an entrepreneur at any age. And we're here showing that. Well, I could really see a gap in the market that you either had, unfortunately, quite cheap clothes, a wash on the high street, far too many of them, and the quality's not amazing, or you would have to be seriously investing in beautiful quality designer brands, and that's lovely every now and again if you can afford it. But what I wanted was really beautiful quality, but just really affordable prices. And also, fashion is great and it's interesting, but you don't always have to be following fashion too closely. And so what you want is clothes that you just keep going back to in your wardrobe over and over, no different probably to makeup, that you just keep going back to because you love them and they really work for you. And they become like, your favourites.
Yeah, your
staples. That was the gap for me. It was about quality, good prices, but things that you will end up absolutely loving and probably having to come back and buy again.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same with beauty. I'm crazy about having the same things, and that's why I like the one product perhaps that you change every now and again. But I do have a habit of going back to have the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
So really that was identifying the gap, and then really it's a case of launching the business. I wanted it to have a digital heart, so I wanted it to be mostly online but with pop-up retail, and so that was the beginning. How about you? When you must have been, did you immediately think, I'm going to set this up? At what point, being a beauty, because you are a beauty expert in the world of journalism, so at what point made you think, I've got to break out of this and set up my own company?
I think for me it was the way the industry was changing, and people didn't buy magazines the same way that they did 5 years ago, and also our shopping habits changed. So I know that I would buy fashion and beauty together, my friends would, my mum would, and I think that I wanted to kind of make that match of making it easy for the customer to be able to buy their beauty with their fashion, but also give that kind of expert opinion, and the fact that I'm putting it together with my knowledge of the industry, of knowing what works and what is amazing, gives each person that goes onto the Winser website, for example, that kind of expert advice. And I think that that's what I really loved about my job, telling people that I met along the way, oh, this product's amazing, or you would love this, and them really engaging and thinking, oh God, I've got to go out and buy that, and kind of providing that expert advice, but on a bigger scale.
Do you know, it's so interesting, because I remember when Natalie Massenet set up Net-a-Porter, she said that she was obviously a journalist and she was writing about fashion. And she said she was inundated with people saying, yeah, but where do I buy this? I can't buy what you're telling me. You know, you're styling, putting these lovely outfits together. Where do I buy them? How do I buy them? And because she was a journalist, her magazine wouldn't let her buy the stock. You know, they reminded her she was a journalist and she was writing.
Yeah.
And that was why she walked into Smith's one day and just picked up off the shelf How to Become an Entrepreneur and launched Net-a-Porter. And so I'm really excited about people that have that lovely clarity of vision of what they want to do for the end consumer, and just work out a way of doing it. And that was definitely Natalie, and I'm quite excited about what you're doing, because I love beauty and fashion together. I think it's a clever move.
What advice would you give to me as like a startup?
Well, I think obviously different businesses, you need different detail, you know, different things to be able to launch something, but I think there are common themes. One, you have to be absolutely passionate about your vision. You really have to have oodles of energy and be really passionate. Secondly, I think you have to find who you're going to work with. Who is your network? Because any startup needs a platform to get launched.
Yeah.
So be really determined and think through who are the people, who are the friends, who are the business colleagues. You're going to need something to get going.
Yeah.
And I think thirdly, probably the business side of it. You know, when I do my mentoring days, the one thing that tends to get left is the business side of it, cash flow. Where it's not just about a straightforward profit and loss, not just a straightforward P&L. It's not about, you know, that's my turnover, that's my cost base. It's also about the cash flow, because you know, every week, you know, when you're spending money and when you're getting it in, when you're spending the money, when you're getting it in. So the business side of it, and not every entrepreneur is a clever business person, but find a partner who is. Find somebody you can rely on. So I'd say passion, energy, determination, the people, and the business plan. Easy.
It makes it sound easy. But I do think that is a really key point, because for me, starting up, you don't really think about all the expenses that you're going to have, and you kind of put it to the back and think, oh, it won't be as much as that, but it is a really important part of your business. I mean, it is the main part why you're doing it, as well as the love for it. And I really and truly love beauty. I kind of live and breathe it, and it is my absolute passion to give as many people as possible the advice that I have grown to get over the years, which is brilliant.
But there's so many products. I mean, every week there's so many. You know, even I'm flying out again through Heathrow, and I know that I'm going to walk into that beauty hall and think, okay, and that is why I think I quite often end up just going back and buying the same thing, because there's just so many. So how do you work your way through that hall? How do you find what suits me as an individual?
Well, funny you say that. So being a beauty editor, we would get sent so many products. We probably get about 50 products a day. And I think for me what I wanted to do was kind of cut through all of the good from the great, and be able to provide that give that platform to amazing customers that want the advice, but also to work with some smaller brands that are, maybe their technology is better because they're a smaller company, so they've got less hoops to kind of go through. And those up and coming smaller niche brands are really, really making a stand in beauty, and it's kind of breaking that mold of having to be in a big like Lauder or a L'Oreal, and breaking through into these small brands are growing hugely because people are kind of investing in that niche company, and the fact that they can speak to the founder, and I think that is really important. People have got a face and can put that to the brand, and to be able to tell people about the smaller brands as well as the amazing big ones, I think it gives you a different outlook, I guess. I think my friends and family will always go back to the same products because you're almost a bit scared to try anything else. But if you've been really recommended something brilliant by somebody that knows, then
do you know, it's fascinating because I was talking to some very senior entrepreneurs, people that own some of the biggest companies now in the world. They were the entrepreneurs in the 80s and 90s, and we were discussing who are the new entrepreneurs of tomorrow, and who are the people that are really going to make it. And there was one thing, we all had different points of view, but actually the one thing we all had in common was that probably some of the biggest companies in the future are the ones that are fairly new. And I think it's because you've got to start your business with quite a different business plan today.
Yeah.
Much more flexible, much more responsive, very consumer facing. And that's my passion. I mean, that was something that I really felt very strongly for when setting Winser up. Was I wanted us to do everything that the customers wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't want any corporate structures or ways of working to get in the way. I wanted a brand new, nimble business model. And I think that it was interesting because in the group of us, there was 9 of us, and it was fascinating to feel that everybody felt the same.
Yeah.
That some of the biggest companies in the next 5, 10, maybe 20 years will probably be fairly new startups now, and following brand new lifestyle trends and setting themselves up with a completely new business model, which personally I find very exciting.
Yeah.
But it's a major challenge for some of the big corporates.
Yeah.
Major challenge.
Yeah, very difficult. But an interesting space, and exciting to see what is coming up and how these brands are changing, working with their customers much more closely.
I think we've got quite a few questions coming in, so we should pick up on some of those.
We have indeed. We've got quite a few actually, and not just through Facebook, but also sent in via our Twitter feed as well. The first one actually comes in from Yasmin Taylor, and she says on Facebook, "Fab stream, thank you so much for the inspirational discussion. One question, who do you admire in the business world and why?"
Oh, Samantha, go on.
I think that I really admire amazing women that have built a business while also raising a family or having so many other things going on in their lives. And I met recently with the founder of Floral Street, which is a fragrance brand, and her name's Michelle Feeney, and she is an amazing woman that brought MAC to the UK. She built the branding around Bumble and Bumble. She worked with MAC about building their AIDS campaign and putting the celebrities to the face. And she's just started her own brand, Floral Street, with amazing branding. And I think she's in her, oh God, I don't want to say, but I think she's in her 50s, and she's really an inspirational. She's an inspirational woman who has her own family and has moved around from Canada to London and really built up an amazing business, and she's got such great experience.
Well, it's International Women's Day tomorrow, so I think it's only right that we keep our answer to women. Sorry, gentlemen, but I think my list would be too long. But I like anybody similar to you that has really taken on lots of challenges and who are already doing many other things, and then on top of that. Launch their own business and also give back. I think not necessarily, I'm not talking necessarily just straightforward charitable work, but in some way help with education of others and to help bring others through the ranks and to help give guidance and support to other women. I think that is really, really important. But it also applies to the young guys as well.
An interesting question on cash flow from Jack Hamilton Fellows. Cash flow is such a difficult thing to manage. How to manage the risk of the start of the year when you're spending money on events and stock? Surely you have to spend more to earn more.
It's not about how much you spend. It's the point is much more about make sure that you are estimating how much you spend and try to remember all of the things that you are going to have to spend on before you're going to get any receipts in. So it's I'm not saying whether you should spend more or less. It depends on your business and it depends on your business model, and also depends on how much you want to invest. It's more about the timing. A lot of big companies, unfortunately, don't necessarily pay on exactly the terms they say they're going to pay. So they may say, I'm going to pay on 30 days, but they may query it during that time. They may say, oh, actually, there's a query on this. And then before you know it, becomes 40 days. So all I'm saying with your cash flow is just be very careful with the forward planning. So don't assume your receipts are all going to come in exactly on time. Give yourself a little bit of buffer. But then when you're actually spending your money, make sure you try and stretch it out. So if you're not getting a receipt in, you're not exposed, because cash flow can put you under. So it's more a case of forward planning and being a little cautious.
Excellent, thank you. And
thank you for that question.
A question from Victoria. Do you think it's become easier to start your own business with the evolution of technology, and therefore has it become increasingly more competitive?
I think so. I think it's got its pros and its cons. I think that launching a business now seems a bit more accessible because you have got that reach of social media, but it is a lot of effort and it's not as easy as I think people think it is. Getting those followers and getting that engagement from people is so important to build your brand. I'm sure you'll probably agree. But I think that it is an amazing platform for young people, any age, people like anybody that wants to do their own business. It gave me the push to want to do it myself, and also being open to seeing so many other people that have started their own business through social media and all these online platforms. So yeah, I think it's a real positive, but I think it's still a big challenge because it is so competitive.
Did you say it was Victoria? I think it's a very good question, and I think without question the world is a smaller place now. Digital platforms have allowed that, and I know that we're only 5 years old, but we are actually now exporting 20% of the business, and yet we have not done one article outside of the UK. So that is showing it is definitely either through social media or friends of friends conversations or people travelling. But we launched our new spring collection just a couple of weeks ago, and I tracked on the first day over 30% of our business was going outside of the UK, and that was on the very first day of uploading the new collection. So people are watching and they are responding, and Australia is our second biggest country after America. So America's number one, Australia's number two, but we're shipping into, you won't believe the number of countries. In one day it can be going to Beijing, Hong Kong, Sydney, Iceland, Germany, Berlin, very widespread.
Yes.
So it's a very good question. Thank you, Victoria.
An interesting question from Saskia Potts on the age of how entrepreneurs how young can they be? She says, how young can you start a business?
Goodness, I think, I don't know. I think you can, if you feel ready and you have a great idea, I think a great idea is the start of it. I think you need to be able to sell it and market it well, but you also need to be able to follow through and provide a great service. So if you can do that at any age, then I think go ahead and do it.
Well, I think, Saskia, that's a good question. My son is 19 and he's currently at university. I would probably say to him he's a little young if he wanted to launch a new business. But I think it's all about, if you've got those points that we said earlier, if you've got the passion, you've got the vision, you've got to have some money somewhere. Somebody's got to be supporting, even though you can start something up really very cheaply initially, but eventually you're going to have to pay some bills. And if you've got a network, I think you have to consider what is the network for your business.
And a great question from Chris Sanford. What were the first 3 things you focused on when you each set up your businesses? Samantha, perhaps.
Okay, thank you, Chris. First thing was definitely what the business was there to do. What was the gap in the market? What, you have to have a very clear vision. It's a busy marketplace. So that was the most important. Secondly would be people. I knew that I was setting up a business that I wanted to grow to be quite a size. I wasn't interested in setting up something that was going to be small. So I knew I had to reach out and find some really good people to be part of the team. So that was, without that, I probably wouldn't have progressed. So those 2 things I think are absolutely vital: a really clear vision and a really good team of people. And then luckily I'm just born with oodles of energy and positive determination, so I think you need a bit of that, because when you set up your own company you do work ridiculous hours, so I think you have to be prepared for that.
I think for me, the first thing I did was similar to you, to reach out to different people and kind of get that almost like market research through your close contacts about what they think about your idea and how you can develop it to make it a bigger, more all-inclusive idea. And I think for me, there wasn't really anyone doing what I'm doing out there, and so for really finding my niche and finding ways to make it work was really important. So I was speaking to as many people as I could as possible, and finding the name for me was really an exciting process. And Just Add Beauty was the first name that I came to think of, and I remember coming to you and thinking,
I loved it.
I'm not sure about the name. You were like,
I love it.
It is what it is.
Says exactly what it is. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a really exciting part of starting.
Yeah,
my business.
that was interesting, because I deliberately put London with my name, Winser London, because I knew right from the beginning I wanted to have a global business.
Yeah.
And London is very powerful in the world of fashion, very powerful. And so I wanted to include London, and I didn't want the business to be Kim Winser. I wanted it to be Winser London. I wanted it about. I wanted it to have its heart, its heart in London. But just one extra point on what Samantha was saying there. I think it's very important when you're thinking of launching something that you talk to people, not just friends and family, because friends and family can be a little bit too kind and can be a little bit too supportive. So I think it's also quite good that you may have within the family and friends people that can be very negative or very challenging, let's put it that way. I think it's important that you get in front of a few people that are very challenging, because otherwise you might fall into it a little bit too easily.
Yeah.
And a final question that actually leads on quite neatly from that last one, from Aram Avni. What qualities do you need to become an entrepreneur in the digital world?
I think like you said, a good following, or having that base of contacts that will understand your business and help you be reactive to what's going on in society. That will keep your business relevant. Goodness, what do you think?
I think really in the digital world, it's not like really anything different to anything else. You've got to be up to speed. You've got to really know what you're talking about. It's a sharp industry. It's an industry I feel really passionate about, and I love it. But you really do have to live the lifestyle. You really do have to understand the business that you're in. And your competition is now global, so you're going to have to be good. So I think it's a case of, make sure you nurture your talent, keep re-educating yourself. It's exactly as we said earlier. You really have to be very passionate about the space, and you have to understand the lifestyle. So I think we must bring this to a close. Please follow on. We've got lots of questions and answers. We will keep, if you send them in, we will keep answering you. It won't be live anymore, but we will answer your questions. So please feel free to send them in to either Samantha or myself. And if you've enjoyed this, we will do it again at another date. So thank you very much, and thank you for your contributions. Thank you.